Chelsea Cutler with Your Bones. Welcome back. You're listening to the Country Viewpoint here on your colour of country life, Flow FM. And it's time for us to check in with one of the regular voices that we often have here on this program, and that is Helen Dalton, the independent member for Murray. Lovely to be back with you, Helen. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you.
How are your Christmas preparations coming along?
They're not. They're completely stalled from before last Christmas, I think. But anyway, I'll get there soon enough. But
Yes.
a little bit busy at the moment.
Yes, I think it's a fairly wide-ranging club, that one. Helen, lots to get through. It's been a very busy time with plenty of different things happening. I want to go first to the issue of the New South Wales Labor government and where it stands on gambling law reforms. Now, you've had plenty to say about this over the last couple of days, so just bring us up to speed on what this is all about.
Well, we're highlighting the fact that federal Labor government is getting revenue from some of the Labor clubs, and that's being funded from poker machines. So we're highlighting that as, I guess, as Labor's dirty little secret that we didn't know about. And of course, we're saying that that's not good enough. We need to come clean with all of that. I believe that some of those proceeds have been kind of hidden in that they go into the coffers and then get directed to the Labor Party. But we need to send a clear message to the federal Labor government and indeed New South Wales that we want gambling reform and we want it now.
So you're saying that effectively Chris Minns and the government is untenable when it comes to this issue? Well,
Chris Minns, of course, he's the state premier, and these Labor clubs are attached to the federal Labor Party. But Chris Minns, there is an inquiry into the cashless gaming card, and that's been announced months and months ago, and nothing's been done as yet. So he's kicking the tin into the long grass, and I'm asking them to get on with it. If we know that gambling does harm, we want them to initiate the cashless gaming card right now. We know that it works. It works in other countries. And it's time that we got ourselves together and did the same here.
And just to be clear, you're saying that the government is not being transparent because it has come out and said on the record that they've stopped the proceeds going into their coffers.
Well, they've hidden it. It's not as transparent as it should be. And these Labor clubs were set up years ago, and their charter is to provide revenue from poker machines. And it's still going on in one shape or another. So we're asking them to come clean. Those clubs should really be now turned into social clubs and, of course, reduce the number of poker machines.
Okay, we know how problematic gambling addictions are and the impact irresponsible gambling can have on regional families already struggling with other pressures is immense, especially when it gets very out of hand. So how often do you come across this issue in your electorate, Helen?
Look, we do. I come across it all the time. We know that 185 million in the seat of Murray is lost to gambling each year, and that's increasing. Anecdotally, gamblers in our districts are very well known, and I know who they are, I guess, and we know the impact on families is very evident with hungry kids, financial problems and busted marriages. It's around us all the time, and of course many people then head into, I guess, ill health with mental health problems because of the pressure they're under. So we need obviously a reduction in poker machines. We need the cashless gaming card, and we need those services to help those that have a gambling addiction to overcome it.
Okay, well, the New South Wales clubs, the industry has seemingly put a bit of a campaign up against you, and there's some signage going around. The wording in that signage seems fairly extreme to me. Does that concern you?
Oh, it certainly did. I thought it was really quite bullying and intimidating, and it was quite confronting walking into a club and there was a life-size photo of myself telling everyone that I was disrupting things. And of course, I've survived the election, and they realised that the tide has turned. People understand now that gambling or poker machines can be an addiction, and that we need reform. And they've come, I guess, Clubs New South Wales kicking and screaming to the table and saying that they're going to change, but I haven't seen that as yet. They will drag it out as long as they possibly can. It's up to Chris Minns to expedite it. We know that it does harm. We know that there's 91,000 poker machines throughout the state, and that in itself is just horrific.
Helen Dalton is the independent member for Murray. We'll return back to this conversation right after these messages from our sponsors. Back soon. Ian Moss with Nullarbor Plain, and welcome back. It's the third hour of the Tuesday Country Viewpoint edition on Flow FM. You're with Ella Skelios, and I'm with Helen Dalton. She joins me on the line once again, the independent member for Murray. Helen, it's just worthwhile noting as well for those listening from outside of New South Wales that one of the key election pledges of the current government in New South Wales was to facilitate this reform on pokies.
Well, it was, but they haven't had their heart and soul in that reform. The Coalition certainly pledged to get on with things and introduce the mandatory cashless gaming card, but Labor haven't. They've sort of tweaked the edges a little bit, and they're dragging their feet on this reform.
All right, let's move on and talk about the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. We've spoken extensively about this with you throughout this year on this show. Now, you introduced a new bill into Parliament during last week's sitting week. Just allow us to understand a little bit more comprehensively exactly what this bill is enacting.
Well, this bill, most water entitlements sit in within New South Wales Government. In other words, they approve the sale of water entitlements. And I was asking New South Wales Government to not approve or I suppose move that water to the Commonwealth unless it meets the socio-economic test. In other words, stand up for rural communities. And we know that every drop that leaves our districts and our rural areas leads to hardship. So it gives the government an excuse to, close our schools and cut our health services, and then the banks decide that they're going to shut the doors and leave our towns. So every drop that leaves. So if they were to abide by this socio-economic neutrality test, I would think that there would be no water in the Southern Connected System or the Seat of Murray that would be eligible to be transferred. And I'm asking Chris Minns and the government not to transfer the water to the Commonwealth unless it does meet that, and there are that socio-economic test, and there are benefits for that water moving to South Australia. So people can still trade their water to the farmer next door, or even indeed, to other districts around, but not to the Commonwealth. Once that water leaves our areas, it'll never come back. So it'll go every year. It'll be washed out to sea through South Australia. So we know that we are the powerhouse of agriculture here, and that removing another 450 gigalitres of water is just going to be a tipping point for many of those staple intergenerational businesses such as dairying and annual cropping. So basically, the states should stand up to the Commonwealth, to Tanya Plibersek's new bill, which is obviously it's gone through, but there's still time for Chris Minns to stand up to her and say enough is enough. Find your water another way, and that could be looking at environmental outcomes rather than just a volume of water going down. So we of course have a massive problem with carp in our rivers. I think every day I hear or I get video from somebody in the electorate talking about how bad the carp is in the Lachlan, in the Bidgie, in the Murray, and all the tribs and creek. They're full of carp. And this is impacting, of course, on water quality and impacting on the native fish.
And I just wonder, could this bill potentially trigger the New South Wales State Government to oppose the federal government's position on buybacks right now?
Well, it's putting pressure on Chris Minns and Rose Jackson, the Water Minister, and that's what needs to be done. Every day. So every day I'm talking to the department or their people, saying what has to be said. So it's certainly highlighting a lot of the issues. They are aware of it, but whether they stand up to Tanya Plibersek, of course they're both Labor governments, and this is the problem, where they don't want to. I suppose they want to support one another, but this is a bad deal. Chris Minns knows it's a bad deal, and so does Rose Jackson, and they'll have to man up and really support, or not support, but stick up for people in rural New South Wales. We're providing food and fibre for the nation, and yet we're under an increased amount of pressure to do more with fewer megalitres of water.
Helen Dalton is independent member for Murray. Always great to chat, Helen. Really appreciate your time. We'll speak to you again soon.
Okay, thank you.
That is Helen Dalton, the independent member for Murray, rounding out our Country Viewpoint Tuesday edition on Flow FM. We'll conclude things on the other side of this break. Back with you real soon.